Thank you, Ashwin. Thank you for being here at Kanha. It's such a joy to have you here.
And what a lovely place this is. Besides the amazing infrastructure, but I think the vibration of Kanha is about you, Daji.
It's not about me. It's about all of us that
Such beautiful
contribute.
vibes.
See, one ring cannot contribute vibration in a temple.
Yeah. What I wanted to actually start out with, as a storyteller, I'm always looking for stories. And sometimes, as luck would have it, we don't have to search for the stories. The stories seem to search for us.
Correct. Eyes are needed.
Yeah. So yours is one fascinating tale.
When I went to US, I was wondering whether this transmission I'm enjoying in India from these preceptors will also be there. It transcended all the distances. What mattered was, are you willing to participate in this spiritual adventure or not? That's all. The moment you call it, and it comes.
I find connections across religions. But when there is so much in common between different religious paths, why do we have so much strife? Why do we have so much religious strife?
There is no answer to this. Why? Because this why is known to everyone.
Is happiness meant to be my natural state?
Let's talk about this in the evening. I
Sure.
think this can be another 2 hours. So it's very simple, I think. It's very simple.
I'm delighted to be here, Daji. It's such a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me here.
Thank you, Ashwin. Thank you for being here at Kanha. It's such a joy to have you here.
And what a lovely place this is. I mean, besides the 300,000 trees that have got planted here, besides the amazing infrastructure, but I think the vibration of Kanha is about you, Daji.
It's not about me. It's about all of us that
Such beautiful
contribute.
vibes.
See, one ring cannot contribute vibration in a temple.
Yeah.
There are multiple bells that come together.
Yeah.
To some, it may sound like a noise.
Absolutely.
Right? To some, it will be a music to ears, to awaken.
Right.
So the vibration that is created here,
Yes.
I think it has only one purpose. My dream is that whosoever may enter this ashram should be in a position to feel that call for the inner awakening. See? And further, if they keep visiting again and again, and this atmosphere should nourish them to that level of liberation at least. Yeah.
No, but let me tell you, I've been here for all of maybe 1 hour or 1.5 hours. I've had a chance to spend half an hour with you before I walked into the studio. And let me tell you, I am by nature a restless individual, and my mind is always running. But I'm feeling a strange sense of calm, peace, which is very unlike Ashwin Sanghi. So I'm just wondering what is going on.
Well, you'll come to know at the end of the interview.
At the end of this interview. Wonderful.
Yeah.
What I wanted to actually start out with was, as a storyteller, I'm always looking for stories. And sometimes, as luck would have it, we don't have to search for the stories. The stories seem to search for us.
Correct. Eyes are needed.
Yeah. So yours is one fascinating tale. A Gujarati pharmacist, correct me if I'm wrong, pharmacist from New York, Kamlesh Patel's transforms into Daaji. Tell us a little bit. Tell us a little bit about this journey. What made this happen?
Well, before I became a pharmacist, I was a farmer.
Okay.
And walking in dust of my village, Kalla. Then opportunities took me to various schools in Gujarat, starting with Arya Samaj, where some instilling of our Vedas and Upanishads were poured into my heart. See. Then came the time of Swami Vivekananda and his great guru, Paramahansa, Sri Ramakrishna. They bowled me completely. Without him, I don't think I can safely say and confidently say that I can enter into spirituality. Their role was paramount. Anything that I can remember now, that each time I read Ramakrishna's gospel, I was very young then, maybe 10 or so, I would cry like a child and request, where are you? Please help and come be with me. And I may not be Vivekanand, but I have a craving. Please teach me. So this attitude was there from very early age. But I had no solution until I came at the feet of Ramchandra of Shahjahanpur. It turned everything into such a glorious path for me. And in him I found Ramakrishna. Now I don't regret. And in fact, in very first initiatory sittings that I received, she was a very humble lady from Marwadi family. Very humble, very pious, who didn't study much. She was one of the trainers of the system. We call them preceptors. She was prepared by Ramchandraji himself. So I didn't have to go to Babuji, my guru, to have initiation. But he had, because of these trainers, made our lives easier. That whatever I can do, these trainers can also do.
Wow.
Right? So I went to her, had initiatory sittings from her. The very first sitting, it transported me to a different dimension altogether. I wasn't there. I was, as they say in quantum, particle became white. Zap, you're gone. And in that void, I felt the presence of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. I can see only his hand like this, golden glow on his hand, and some faint around his face. Raising hand, not many words. That's all. Giving a green signal, go ahead. This is the path for you. That was my feeling at that time, see. And I have not stopped after that. Journey continued. It was everything on full swing, see, from that day onward. And I was moved to tears. My preceptor also was moved to tears and said, wow. She said, you have very good samskaras that will propel you further. And there is one better preceptor than myself. You go and take a sittings from him. I said, what a humble lady. She has given me the experience which I've been dreaming of, and many saints, I don't know whether they had such an experience ever. To enter into absolute void, it's not a joke. And she's telling, I have someone better. So she increased my thirst. So I went to another preceptor. It was great. And then finally, when I met Ramchandra in Shahjahanpur, 1977, I met him a year later. He spoke not on a word with me. We went with so much of anticipation, but for 3 days that I spent with him, 0 words. But he gave us transmission, he gave us sittings. And that was most fulfilling. There was no need to ask any question, you see. And then many such visits to him and many meditation sessions with these preceptors. I think slowly and slowly it was cooked up. And then when I went to US, I was wondering whether this transmission I'm enjoying in India from these preceptors will also be there.
Right.
But it transcended all the distances. What mattered was, are you willing to participate in this spiritual adventure or not? That's all. Moment you call it, and it comes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I went, before I came to you in Kanha, I went through one single meditation sitting in Bombay with, I guess, what you call preceptors, right?
Preceptors, yes.
Yeah. So, and, you know, prior to that, the only one single time in my life when I had meditated was Vipassana. And of course, Vipassana was a lot about discipline in terms of breath control and then concentrating your energy on the breath to the point where you can eventually still your mind. But this was almost like, just visualize the light in your heart. And I was wondering that, I mean, the two styles are so different. So what is it? Is it mind? Is it heart? Is it both? What is it, Daji?
Well, we meditate with an idea that divine light is already present in my heart.
Mhm.
The idea of visualization should not be there. Otherwise, mind will start working.
Mm.
So the sankalpa we make is that divine presence is already there in my heart. So with that confidence, we move on. With an attitude that, my God, I don't know you. I never felt your presence. How am I going to think of your presence in my heart?
Mm.
But I would love to experience your presence.
Mm.
I have no conditions that you look like this. So the idea of visualization must disappear from our mind
Mm.
and then proceed. The magical thing won't happen. See, with mind, if you try to understand something, it's not physics or chemistry.
Mm.
Physics and chemistry has to be understood. They cannot be felt.
Right.
Spirituality cannot be understood. They have to be felt. Feeling cannot happen from brain. Suppose if I say, like many methodologies, many spiritual paths, they recommend meditating on navel, for example, Nabhi chakra.
Yes.
Or some of them will say, please meditate on the tip of your nose.
Right.
Some of them will say, tricuti between your eyebrows.
Yes.
Some of them will say on your Sahasradal Kamal, top of your head. Or some of them will say, meditate on flame of candlelight or deepam, something external to yourself.
That's right.
Now, if I ask you, feel something, would you use your liver or stomach to feel it? The only organ of perception or feeling at the depth is your heart. And you can increase this depth of feeling only by closing your eyes. So though we may begin with a mental sankalpa, we end up using the heart in order to perceive what comes next.
Wonderful. Absolutely.
Right? So though religions, yogas, various approaches, they may teach us, to think in certain way, believe in certain way. There are dogmas.
Yeah.
But through meditation, which is a spiritual path, these dogmas and beliefs are actually translated into experience.
Beautiful. Daji, in fact, since you brought up dogmas and religion, uh, I can't remember who it was who said that philosophy is about questions that can never be answered, and religion is about answers that can never be questioned. And I was just wondering to myself, I said that in some ways, has organized religion, uh, is it actually distancing us from being truly evolved spiritual beings? Or is it actually just one path to spirituality?
It depends what you really mean by religion. You see, religion of today and religion that was established by nobody. I say nobody because if take for example, who founded Buddhism?
Mm.
Who founded Christianity? Who founded Jainism? Who founded Islam? Who founded Hinduism?
Mm.
Can you name anyone?
Well, I can, but that's
Tell me.
But the point is, Daji, that most of these figures are again stories, right?
No, but tell me who established Jainism or
Mahavir, Buddha,
you go wrong
Christ.
there. Exactly, you went wrong there.
Okay.
Lord Jesus Christ himself was not Christian.
Mm-hmm. That's
He,
right.
he was a Jew.
Correct.
What became after him after his death is Christianity.
Right.
His followers made it, not him.
Yes.
Islam also was not established by Prophet Muhammad. What became after him by
Was
these
Islam.
enthusiasts. Same thing with Buddhism. Buddha was not a Buddhist. What became after him because of his followers, right? I don't think they ever wanted to organize something into such a limited thing. When I say my religion is top notch, nothing is better than me. Now you are separating yourself from rest of the godly kingdom. You are exclusively creating your own island, your own identity. Creating your identity is against nature.
Yeah.
And it cannot function. Creating and say myself, my religion is better. Automatically, you are denigrating the other person's religion. And how can there be peace when you think you are better than someone?
Absolutely.
And even in a family,
Yeah.
when there are children, and especially when a newborn child is there with you, husband and wife, though they love each other, they fight. What does this look like? Someone, a guest might come and say, it looks like mother. Father gets annoyed. If he may not express much, but from his heart, no. It
In
looks
my
like
case, I wanted my son to look like my wife because she's got far better looks. But so we fought about that. We never fought about him wanting to look like me.
well, let us say let's talk about general public.
Yeah.
By and large, they would even fight for such things.
Yeah. But you're right. You're right. Petty things,
Petty
small
things.
things.
Small. And when it comes to things like this, where you have invested your emotions, your morning and evenings, and your belief system, then you start fighting. The purpose of religion, I don't think there was any purpose because they didn't start it in the first place. They came together and say, this is something special. We need to spread this at any cost.
Yes.
Any cost means any cost.
At
You
any
can
cost.
talk. If they had these bazookas and machine guns, they would have used it in those days, perhaps.
Of course. It was very interesting. I was some years ago, I was in Calcutta and I was giving a lecture at a college. And in the afternoon, I had some time free. And so I told my driver, I said, take me to some interesting place. He said, would you like to go to a temple? So I said, fine, take me to a temple. And when we reached there, Daaji, I didn't know that it was a temple. It looked so ordinary. I walked inside and it was whitewashed walls, small, maybe 10 by 10 room. And there was a green colored throne. And when I looked closely, there was, of course, a pujari who was doing arti, and there were people who were offering flowers, etc. But on the green colored throne was a portrait of Amitabh Bachchan. And I realized he had brought me to an Amitabh temple. And I was wondering to myself, I thought to myself, I said, is this an alternative universe? Have I reached some parallel reality, as it were? So I walked out of the mandir, pinched myself, and I was waiting for the driver to come back with the car. And there was this little boy who was selling, in a basket, he was selling puja ka saman. So agarbattis and flowers and prasad. So from him, I bought a little book which was called the Amitabh Chalisa. And I still have that lying in my library. But I thought to myself, I said, supposing, Ashwin, you were knocked down at this moment by the car and you took rebirth 1,000 years later. And by now, the cult of Amitabh worship has really caught on. And now it isn't one temple dedicated to Amitabh, but 1,000 or 1 lakh. And someone asks you that, do you think that Amitabh could have been a historical figure? Now, isn't that precisely the question that we are asking ourselves today about people like Ram or Krishna, that could there have been some truth, some reality to these personas? What is your take on this?
Well, these are personalities or avatars, as they say. They were definitely present, 100%. They were superhuman beings, if you would like to call them as superhuman beings. Things that an ordinary man could not do. For example, fighting with giants or rakshasas of those times.
Right.
they can blink their eyes and finish them off.
Right.
Right? You give such credits to aliens today.
That's right.
The aliens will come and wink his eye, but this is again theatrical.
Yeah.
The times of Lord Rama and Lord Krishna, this was not theatrical. It was reality unfolding right in front of people.
Mm. Mm. So you would sort of veer towards the view that maybe there is a kernel of truth, and that over the years we've layered it. Is that what it is?
It's a fact that Lord Krishna was an avatar Purush.
Yes.
And once the time of Lord Rama was over, his epoch started.
Right.
Right. Now, in the timeline, if you think of it, it's like Nehru.
Yes.
If you consider that PM after PM,
That's
and
right.
once one is gone, second comes,
Correct.
second gone, third comes, like
That's
that.
right.
And the time comes, one is also kicking the bucket for good.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So in such scenarios, you see, when Lord Rama's role was over, and that was completed almost after 5,000 years after his birth, he continued and he remained as a functionary. Right? Then came Lord Krishna's time, whose epoch still continues until the next avatar might take a birth.
So it was the writer C.S. Lewis who said that a myth is a lie that reveals a truth. So he was, I guess, to a certain extent, talking about a deeper truth that our myths convey to us.
You see, people take it as a story. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
This is after the deaths of people of
Yes.
such dimensions. Whether you take it as a reality or a mere story, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter now.
Now.
Only if you take some essence out and practice those lessons that they had taught
Yes.
us, it's enough for us. They had no idea that people will worship. They didn't want people to worship them. All of them want that the public in general should follow what their teachings are, what they said. The consequences of if you do the wrong thing, what can happen.
Yes. Do you also believe that actually just simply leading a life where, let's say, someone like me, who's entirely, let's say, devoted to my writing, I love telling my stories. And at times when I'm up at 5 in the morning and I'm writing my story, I feel almost lost. Is that also a form of meditation?
I don't think so.
Okay.
People take drugs and also get lost.
That's right.
Would you
So
call that
that's not
meditation?
meditation.
No.
So the concept of being a karma yogi or or attaining God through your work, that would not, in
Not.
your opinion, exist?
It depends with what state of mind are you performing your karmas.
Right.
Right? There are some stories about prostitutes in our sastras.
Right.
And there are Upanishad stories based on their life.
Right.
Right? There are Sufi stories also related to that. What were you doing with your actions? Where was your heart?
So it comes back to heartfulness.
Not just that. You see, it's been there forever. I mean, whether you give a word like heartfulness or not, it really doesn't matter.
Right.
Right? In Gita also, it talks about karma.
Correct.
And Lord Krishna specifies 3 categories of karma. Karma, akarma, and vikarma.
Okay.
Karma, any ordinary person performs karma, no problem. Karma performed with love becomes Vishishta karma. It has a further meaning to it. Vishishta karma is karma performed in such a way that there are no consequences attributed to the person who has performed karma. There are no rewards or punishment at the end of it. You don't form samskaras, as they say. You don't form the seeds or the impression for the future actions.
Right.
Now, what sort of karmas will those be? For example, A mother feeding baby with lot of love. It's a karma.
Yes.
If that love was not there, that very act would become a burden.
Yes.
And there are consequences to it. If it is done with love, it just passes on. See, there are no karma phalas involved in all these things. Suppose if your wife, Anu, tells you, Ashwin, wake up, baby is crying. Go feed the baby. So you'll go and pick up milk from the refrigerator, warm it up, and if she does this for 2-3 nights, what would you do to her?
Yeah, I must
Yeah,
admit
yeah.
that I rarely ever got up. Why?
No, suppose if
hadn't.
she had done this for
Yeah.
3-4 nights,
Yeah.
2 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
you would get mad. Oh, why are you troubling me with all this? So though you may perform karma, but you'll remember it. Mothers don't remember because that involvement of love element is in the picture.
Understood.
So karma plus Vishishta karma, which is endowed with love, becomes akarma. Akarma means karma performed as if it is not performed.
Yes. Wonderful.
And doing this way, you are elevating yourself to next level of sthita pragya. And Lord Krishna defines the highest state, that you are leading a life like a lotus flower, unaffected by the surroundings. It doesn't matter what mother-in-law says or father-in-law says. Mother does the duty of feeding the baby with a lot of love. The whole world can go crazy, but I'm busy with this. And so many other activities.
Yes.
You involve God into this picture, it will further enhance the quality of that love. Suppose mother is so devoted, doing her work with a lot of love. Now, if you bring in divine principle into it, हिंदी में बोलते हैं ना, सोने में सुगंध आ जाएगा.
Correct.
Like that. So it will add further fragrance to such upbringing of a child. Because now you're creating different vibratory levels.
Understood.
You're tapping into unknown. You're tapping into quantum.
Understood. I was just related to this. I was wondering that, I mean, as a person who has now for the last 13, 14 years, I've been writing the stories that I do. And I'm always fascinated by connections, the connections that exist between historical, mythological, theological, spiritual. And I'm always looking for those connections. Uh, in fact, my very first book, The Rosabal Line, I talked about the possibility that I was fascinated by the word Abraham and the fact that you could take A out of Abraham and put it at the end and it became Brahma. And the fact that Abraham's wife was someone called Sarah and Brahma's consort is Saraswati. Or the fact that you have a trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, and a trinity of Lakshmi, Saraswati, Kali. When you overlap these two, you could land up with a 6-pointed star. I find connections across religions. We don't like to talk about them because it's politically incorrect, probably, to talk about them. But when there is so much in common between different religious paths, why do we have so much strife? Why do we have so much religious strife?
There is no answer to this. Why? Because this why is known to everyone. See, the 6-pointed thing you talked about is a David's star in Judaism, says, right? So if you read Quran, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, and you read Rigved's first sloka.
That's right. That's
I mean,
right.
there is, and this is also the first. So we have a lot of commonality. And if you look at what is the most ancient? I could not borrow something from, let us say, mindfulness of this today's. Right? Mindfulness is relatively new today, though its roots are there in Buddhism. The roots of Buddhism are in Hinduism. So I cannot say mindfulness is derived from Hinduism.
Correct.
People will say, what are you talking about? Mindfulness is the newest, latest thing in the world.
That's
And
right.
heartfulness is the most recent one.
Absolutely.
But the roots of all these things, they lie in the core of these Vedas and Upanishads. It's the
And
most ancient. Jainism, some people say it is older than Vedas. It's a debatable thing, see. But their philosophies, they cross each other. Same thing with the principles of Gita and teachings of Christianity. They all exactly meet.
yeah, I was reading, for example, the Sermon on the Mount is very similar to many of the teachings that you find in Buddhism. So, I mean, frankly, you don't even need to look very deep. It's it's almost there at the surface. So for the life of me, I cannot understand, Daji, that why should there be religious strife? What is there to fight about if the source is common, if the origins are common?
But who will convince whom? And I think we should not worry about all these things
Okay.
because you can never convince anyone about your belief system.
Right.
Even let us see, you have taken a stand on quantum, and some other scientist there who is not willing to believe in your theory.
Yes.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Simple things like, I should wake up at 4 o'clock every morning, and you try to convince your son or daughter, please wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's good for your health. How will you convince?
To each his own.
It's so true.
I wanted to ask you, and in the last few years, I have not last few years, but I would say a few decades, I have found some uncanny situations which I'm still unable to explain. Like, for example, I went through an arranged marriage with Anu. Our families knew each other. They said, let the children meet and then they can see whether they want to take it forward. I had never come across someone who I felt I had known a lifetime. Uh, but by the time that I was done with 2 meetings or 3 meetings with her, I knew that I wanted to spend my life with her. And we've been married now 21 years. A couple of years ago, I met uh, a young lady, and I just saw her as my sister in another lifetime. And I said, listen, I mean, you're, for some strange reason, I seem to know everything about you. Do you, how does one explain this? There are some people that you are instantly attracted to. There are some people that you are instantly wary of. Is this past life playing out, or is this something else?
Why not future playing out?
Right.
Anything is possible. I have come across 3 women in my life. All were my mothers in the past. And they're no more there now, but all of them treated me like their own.
And did you feel the same sense with them in this life?
Yes. Same.
The same sort of emotions?
Same emotionally, even much more than my present mother.
Incredible. Incredible.
Yeah. Also, something of the future also.
Okay.
You may not have any past relation, but this person will cross my path in the future as my very dear one.
Yes.
So that is also possible.
That is
We
also
are
possible.
always hung on to the past.
Yeah.
What about the future?
That's right. Yeah, we are on a continuum, right?
Continuum, yeah.
A continuum of quantum
And
possibilities.
time will come when the roads will cross, maybe in a different form.
Yeah.
In the sense that I may be in a different life from today. I'll be dead. Maybe 300 years later, I'll be meeting that person. And sure, that person would meet.
Yeah. Which brings me to another question, really, that now physics is telling us that the past, present, future is all existing simultaneously.
Okay.
I, you know, at a rational level, I find it difficult to absorb that, because I'm like, how is that possible?
Mm.
Because we are used to sequential time, but actually in both Hinduism, Buddhism, we always treated time almost as cyclical. I mean, my book Kal Time Chakra Wheel. In that sense, I'm just wondering that if everything is, I had asked I had asked someone that, how do I explain my lifetimes? And they said, well, think that you've gone into a dark room and there are a series of photographs on the wall, and the only way you can see the photographs is by shining a torch. But the torch can only illuminate one photograph at a time. But does that mean that all the photographs are not there? They are all there.
They're all there.
But it's just that your consciousness is on that one particular photograph.
Correct.
I understand that theoretically, Daji, but I don't understand this at an experiential level. Could you possibly shed that torchlight a little bit on this?
Well, you have to, that's what they call enlightenment. See, when that happens, the entire room is lit. My entire existence is lit. My existence means what I was in the past, what I will be in the future, what I am now. The entire spectrum is shining in front of you. That is the moment of enlightenment. Right? Now, how many of us are able to see this entire spectrum? Right? And even to call this existence as the spectrum is also an insult to the actual phenomena.
Okay.
This brings us to, I think, I will recall something very profound which my Adi Guru said. He said, Atman is divisible.
Okay.
To a firm believer of Vedas and Upanishads, this will create indigestion.
Okay.
Because they say Atman is not divisible. It cannot be cut. It cannot be destroyed. I'm not talking of destruction. My Guruji talks about divisibility of an Atman. See? For an argument's sake, again, to make you understand logically, weren't we part and parcel of that one entire thing, one completeness which existed before the creation came into play? Can you go back logically? That we were one into something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, physics is saying that there was a Big Bang and that we came from a single point, but it always raises the question, what was there before the Big Bang? So I think that, I don't know whether that's what you're alluding to.
That is exactly what I'm saying. That singularity.
That singularity.
So everything was one. If divisibility was possible then,
Yes.
what prevents further divisibility of
Absolutely.
a soul, right?
Absolutely.
And the sloka again gives a hint. When there is completeness, punyavadam punya, no? If you add something to that completeness, what will happen to that completeness? It remains complete.
Absolutely.
If you remove something from that completeness, it's still
complete.
Yeah. So that sloka is very potent and very, it conveys everything about existence. You could have been a Swami Vivekananda. He may be in a brighter world, but he can choose, he can divide his soul and say, I'll be born in Los Angeles, I can be in Ghaziabad, and still continue to do the work. The guy in Los Angeles and guy in Ghaziabad may not know at physical level.
Yes.
But the guy who has made himself divisible, he would know I'm in two places.
Yes.
And why would he do? Why would he divide himself and say, you go one here, you go to another planet perhaps? So it is only to harness something further so they can evolve more and more experiences, more and more shifts in consciousness. it adds on. So after the death of the guy who was in Ghaziabad, after the death of the person who is in Los Angeles, they need not die at the same time. When they go back to Bat River, they'll merge in the original entity.
Yeah.
And that's how they become potent, more and more potent.
Amazing. In fact, I remember reading about this in autobiography of a yogi. Paramahans Yoganand experienced this where his guru was at multiple places. And he was wondering as to how his Guruji had got there.
I see.
In all, and probably it was, again, going back to this, that if Atma is divisible indeed, then why isn't it possible to be there simultaneously at so many physical locations?
Yeah.
You know, in one of my books, I had this formula, and it's, of course, please now, I feel like a fraud when I'm sitting next to you, Daji, because ultimately what I am is an entertainer, whereas you are, uh, you know, the font of wisdom. So I feel very small sitting here.
I don't know if that is true for
If
me.
Ashwin Sanghi with his physique can feel small, then that's saying a lot. But in one of my books, I remember writing that G is equal to infinity minus K. That G is what we attribute to God, infinity being the entire universe, and K being the extent of human knowledge. And I just thought back to the Egyptian times where they saw the sun rise in the east and set in the west. And they say, oh, this is the sun god. And he travels across the sky in his chariot. And when he's tired, he goes to sleep, and that's when we have night. And then later on, of course, Galileo and Copernicus and all of them, they said that no, it's a giant ball of fire. And we derive our energy from it, and we are rotating around this giant ball of fire. And suddenly Ra lost his divine status. And now it just became a ball of fire, ball of energy. So do you think that God is actually a man-made creation in that sense? I mean, did God create man, or did man create God?
Well, God created the universe for sure. But we started creating God and gods and goddesses depending on our needs, with our own fancies. The four paramarthas, as they call, artha, dharma, kama, moksha, four major requirements of life.
That's right.
And based on this, we created gods and goddesses. And prayers offered to them for artha, or fulfillment of kama, or establishing dharma, or gaining moksha. Prayers accordingly were offered. See, so these are all goal-oriented things and these goals are man-made. See, some are really good ones, some are really it makes you laugh. You see, because why need you have to learn something greater about karma? Even squirrels does it well, pigs do it very well. So they don't offer prayer to Kama Deva. See,
Yeah, but we made it into a science. We made it into the Kama Sutra made it into a science.
so likewise, many things of that nature, we created some super being who keeps on instilling his powers for things to go on forever. So these are man-made things, and which are unhealthy. God created human beings and the universe. It's a fact. I mean, you cannot deny. There is a creator, whether you call him God or asuras.
But
doesn't
Daji,
matter.
who created God?
There is no answer to these things. But if I share with you something, then you'll say, "Oh, then who created that entity?"
Absolutely, it's like a series of Russian dolls, right?
Yeah,
Russian eggs.
But there is something. The need to create. I mean, since you are in the fantasy world and writing fantasy novels, let's wander into this.
Yes.
If you say God was created with the purpose of creating the rest of the universe, right? Someone created God or something. They say the need to have the universe, God was created, and He manifested into so many things. Now, when you go back into a physical principle, if you consider that as a first energy,
Right.
in the beginning, there was another energy that gave birth to this energy.
Right. Like, for example, Vishnu sprouting from the navel of Brahma,
Mm.
or Brahma sprouting from the navel of Vishnu. Is that what you're referring to? That one energy created another?
That it's a sequential things.
Yeah.
You see. In spirituality through meditation, when we study this chakra system and actually go through this chakra experiences like one after the other, the shifts in consciousness will tell us about the whole journey. It will also tell us about the creation.
Sure.
This only can be experienced. That when you say, okay, I am here.
Yes.
When what happens to an individual when he attains moksha,
Right.
right? So it's a feeling that will arise, and certain level of vibrations will also be created in your body. Chakras, some chakras will be activated. Most chakras will not be active
Okay.
because they are much higher than the state of moksha.
Right.
When they also get enlightened, you come to a state of Brahma.
Okay.
Yeah? You go further. You go beyond Brahma, means Parabrahma. You go further. And as we go on moving from one level of consciousness to the next, you enter the godly region, the first mind of God you encounter, which came into being with the very first kshobh or the stir or the Big Bang. With that also came the mind of human, with that first star. But if you go still further beyond it, from where the godly mind came, you will be able to access into that void.
Mm.
Now you're able to see from there everything below. But people will laugh at you, say, now you're saying you're going beyond God. There is nothing like beyond, and you see the existence itself. When it's a circle, what is the beginning and what is the end? It's not. Right? Now, there is another aspect to this. If you strictly look at it from a physics point of view, let us see if I push this. It has moved only 3 inches.
Correct.
If there was a ball, it will move greater because
Absolutely.
the surface area of ball cannot compare with the books.
Absolutely.
Okay. If I push a car, I don't know if I'll be able to.
Move it at all.
Okay. Now, why all these different phenomena? Something you just trigger it like this, it flies.
Yes.
Something you push so hard, yet it doesn't move.
That's right.
Because of many factors. One is this weight. Second is the gravitation. Right? Third is the force with which I apply my force. These are variables.
Correct.
Now, when you talk of the creation, meaning the time when there was nothing, no stars, no planets, no galaxies, no gravitation. And let us say you are present and you want to push something. How far will it go?
Infinity.
That's what it is. So when you say first bang, it has to create infinite results because there was nothing in the first place to resist it.
Mm.
And then there was nothing, no stars, no luminosity. What is there in absence of luminosity? Darkness. So that's what is also described in our path by my Adi Guru. He says, just before the creation, there was darkness, veiled within darkness, intense darkness.
Mm.
And when that moment came, first stir, kshobh,
Mm.
bang, and There was so much of violence, you can say. Imagine infinity exploding at that time.
That's right.
Even a thought would have its impact. Just the mere thought will become infinite.
Right.
And he says, this darkness veiled within darkness with horrifying phenomena is depicted in the form of Kali.
Mm.
So Kali is an imagery of that moment of creation. See, what was there? Darkness. Kali is complete darkness portrayed. So you can say this murti of Kali, it depicts that moment. And our rishis were masters, they are scientists par excellence. This is nothing but the finest expression through visual graphics.
Mm. To make it easy for us to understand.
Understand? That's all.
Amazing. Amazing. Since you mentioned Kali and since you mentioned darkness, I've always wondered about this that, people talk about duality, yin and yang. They talk about north and south, heat and cold, light and dark, uh, uh, dualities in that sense. But at a deeper level, somehow I also feel that it's actually the presence of one and the absence of the other. Uh, so, darkness is the absence of light. Uh, Cold is the absence of heat. I'm just wondering as to whether there is a similar sort of relationship or equation between Shiv Shakti. Is there something that we need to understand about the equation between Shiva and Shakti?
Let's analyze this in a scientific way now. How would the movement happen when you pass electricity through a wire?
Yeah.
Right? There is a positive and there is
And a
negative.
negative. That's right.
In computer circuits, it's the same thing, right? The neural passages are passed also through these electric currents in our human system. Right? There is always positive and negative current going on. See, without this, there cannot be movement. And same thing happened at the moment of creation. Prakriti was already present in the form of Kali. Purusha in the form of God was created. And thenceforth began the creation. See?
So, in that sense, you're saying that the male form emerged from that female form.
Much later. It's not like what Christianity says, Adam was there and he was created through.
And then from his rib, woman was created.
Yeah, it's in Hinduism. It is the reverse. The
It's the
woman was
reverse.
first. Kali was there first. Prakriti was first, and then came God as Purusha.
I love that, Daaji. I could sit here and just keep listening to you. I wish I didn't have to ask you questions and I could allow you to just go on. So, coming back to the temporal world, coming back to the world we are living in today, Daaji, I'm wondering that when you just pick up the paper and you read of a terror attack, you pick up the paper and you read about how extremist ideology is taking hold in different parts of the world. And what I don't know, someone like me who is an observer and tends to observe, I'm wondering that we gun down terrorists, but we don't seem to be able to have the ability to fight the ideology which created the terrorist in the first place. So, what is the solution? How are we ever going to be able to contain this virus?
It will take a long time. Nature will have to intervene and bring about some changes on her own. See. Always remind yourself the promise Lord gave, Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya, Glanirabhavati Bharata. Now this Bharat then was the entire planet.
Yes.
Was not restricted to this.
Correct.
So it will happen. If things don't change in its usual manner, intervention is always there. That has always happened on this planet. And that's why so much of calamities, natural calamities will come. Your mind will just freeze, just imagining that. Atom bombs are nothing in comparison to that. One swing and the whole earth is shattered. The new creation will come. But do you want that to happen? No.
Right.
See. We are trying our best through meditation. We try to bring about some changes in some human beings. You cannot change the whole world. Often I hear stories from families, oh, my wife is not meditating, my husband is not meditating, or we both are meditating, but our children are not listening. If you cannot convince your very own
Children.
how are you going to convince somebody in some country?
Yes.
So ideology to be brought about to heart of any individual, it takes a lot actually. Often it is impossible to change a mind frame of someone.
Yeah.
You can kill that person, but you cannot change the mind frame.
Yeah, because the circuits are already established. It's almost sort of hardwired.
Yeah. So best thing would be to just quietly do the work. Quietly.
And do you think that a country like India has a role to play? I mean, we consider ourselves to be the almost, you could say, the cradle from where a lot of these philosophies and thoughts emerged. Can in today's modern world, do you think that India specifically has a more important and critical role towards being a moderating influence on the world?
Definitely. Every geographical location has some role to play. You see, science, it emerged from the West, particularly one nation, Germany. They are the pioneers in the field of science. They are the instigators. Art is from Italy.
That's right.
So many countries have been endowed with certain potential by God. They are the pioneers in certain field. India also takes the cake in certain field, in spirituality. That is the dominance. And the root of all this is spiritual. Unless there is spirituality backing any country, it will be heading for the ruins.
But nowadays, today, Daji, it's become almost fashionable to denigrate ourselves, to almost look down upon where we came from.
True. Imagine 2000 years of slavery.
Yeah. Yeah.
That has made us into that, say.
So, in that sense, what we need is probably another renaissance, a reawakening, as it were.
It's happening. It's happening slowly and slowly. And
Yes.
I think a lot depends on the youth of these days.
Yes.
Youth today are longing to know the answers, fundamental answers. If you can convince them something about spirituality, I think they'll put us to shame.
Yes.
The way they will move forward after that convincing force that arises within them.
Right.
They will be the power force going ahead.
Yes.
Yes, we can change it.
Yes.
And that's where we should focus. One should focus. If a nation has to change, focus on the children.
Yeah.
And how can children be better? Again, the role of mother. Without a mother who has a strong moral, child cannot be as stronger.
Yeah. I was, when I look at myself, for example, I remember a lot of the ideas and thoughts that I have today are as a result of what my grandparents and parents gave me. Uh, and we used to all the time talk about stories. Uh, we would discuss the epics. We would discuss so many things.
Yeah.
And of course, my maternal grandfather, my Nanaji, was himself a great storyteller. He loved telling stories, and many of those were, I'm sure, probably made up also. Uh, and I have carried forward that tradition of fictional retelling. Many years ago, a journalist asked me. They said that, Ashwin, you're an MBA in finance, and suddenly one fine day you start writing books which are on history, mythology, and theology. What gives you the qualification?
Mhm.
So I said, during my growing up years, my mother always used to tell me that I was a bloody good liar. I could tell a lie with a straight face.
Mm.
And probably because I can tell a lie with a straight face, I can narrate stories. I can make up my stories. And I'm a fictional writer, so that's what I do. But my nana used to tell me about the fact that he lived in Kanpur and he would go to the banks of the Ganges and meet sadhus and sants. And he told me on one particular occasion he met a sadhu, and they were sitting across from one another. And the sadhu asked him to close his eyes. So Nanaji closed his eyes. And then the sadhu said, after a minute, he said, Ab apni aankhein kholo. So Nanaji opened his eyes, but the sadhu was not there. He looked left, right, aage, piche. He wasn't there. Then he heard a voice from somewhere above, Murkh, upar dekh. And the sadhu was levitating. Now, of course, as a child, probably not yet into my teens, I wondered as to whether my nana was consuming some mind expanding substances.
Mm.
But that was a sense of skepticism at that time. Today, I find that I'm more open to the idea that it could have happened, or at least I'm willing to accept the alternative. How can we make people be more open to the idea that this is a possibility and that everything that happens is a quantum possibility? Uh, we seem to be so compartmentalized that no, this is possible, this is not possible.
Yes.
How do we encourage, how do we inculcate openness, Daji?
Well, make them levitate.
Well, see, I'm firmly rooted down to the ground because of my gravity. But the point is, how do we at least allow people to entertain that notion?
Well, if is it the first blockade to any possibility is to deny things from happening.
Yeah.
If you believe this is not possible, you have denied that possibility for yourself.
Right. Important. Very important.
Right? So if you say, I cannot become MBBS, or I cannot study finance, or I cannot do this painting, or I cannot drive, I'm afraid of driving, you won't drive. So we have to see the first in ourselves that yes, it is possible for me too. And with that, let's try and see if I can really levitate. But these are all smaller aspects when it comes to true spirituality.
Right.
You see, miracles of this nature. You chew a pan which tastes bitter, and again the same pan you chew it may taste sweeter.
Right.
These are all miracles which are possible, but going beyond all this is a requirement in spirituality. Otherwise, you get bogged down to lower aspects of it. Say,
That's right.
fall of Hinduism, I would say. Hinduism was something great, something so profound. Today, most Hindus, I'm also Hindu, but we are mad about seeking sadhus and pandits who can perform miracles.
That's right.
They'll fall flat on their feet and say, oh, he does this, he does that, he removes, he sows rock or ashes from the hands. If you do this today in Bombay, people will say it's a fraud.
Yeah.
But if you wear some nice dhoti or in orange colors, they'll fall at your feet.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's a cloth and little bit of miracle. You become millionaire tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, it's a great business model.
Yeah. So, but whom are you cheating? The public or yourself? You had the ability to producing ash. You can still go beyond if you drop this fancy or mania for lower things. So Guru of caliber will never encourage you to play with toys. Even here, I would say in a heartfulness way, the main endeavor is going beyond consciousness. Though we play with consciousness, we say through meditation, we are able to evolve. Evolve what? Only consciousness, nothing else.
Daaji, what is consciousness?
Let's come to that in a moment. But here, my Guruji says, and with a nice example, he said, children can play with toys. That's their age. Yogis are playing with consciousness. For them, consciousness has become a toy. He has to look beyond consciousness and ask, what lies beyond consciousness? What is it that supports consciousness? Then you'll find the solution to the problem of life. What is consciousness? Imagine what is not consciousness. Everything in the universe is consciousness. Everything.
We use it so casually, I'm conscious right now, I'm unconscious now.
That is talking about awareness.
Yeah. So what does it mean? I'm so sorry. I'm not even sure whether this can be explained.
It can be explained.
It can be explained.
Very well. When people talk about what is consciousness, I can see this and I don't see this, etc. They're talking about their awareness.
Right.
Consciousness like light. When you see the light and pass it through the prism,
Yes.
it breaks down into so many colors.
Correct.
It's a spectrum.
That's right.
Consciousness is also a spectrum.
Right.
To what extent our gadgets can measure? There are levels of consciousness, no gadget can measure it.
Okay.
What you're familiar with is my awareness. Within awareness also, there's a huge spectrum within. Awareness of a child, right? How to measure the awareness of a child? We can indirectly measure the consciousness playing out there. We say, let's measure this by the amount of thoughts he's carrying.
Brain activity.
Brain activity. More the brain activity, more thoughts.
Right.
Activity resulting in thoughts leading to electrical impulses. Circuits is in a high charge mode. It creates electromagnetic field, which can be measured through EEG. If there are no thoughts, there will be less activity.
Right.
Just bare minimal for biological processing, that's all, nothing else.
Right.
This can be measured. Fast EEG movement is considered a certain wave pattern. While you are in a deep sleep, the wave pattern will be almost like this. You see, 3-4 waves per second.
Okay.
Right? So indirectly, we can measure these things. Right? What happens to a person going into deep samadhi state? Something like that. It depends on what you are doing in that samadhi. There are individuals who are fully cognizant of things around them. They're fully aware, fully absorbed within themselves. At the same time, there are 360-degree awareness, not only of now, but as they say, a continuum, where past, present, future, that's what samadhi is. Everything collapses into one. Time freezes for such an individual for that moment. Now, when you are not in samadhi, let's say you are in a dream state. It has its own frequencies. Now, between these fast frequencies and almost flat frequencies, you can measure them on EEG.
Right.
But there are levels of consciousness, you cannot measure them on gadgets.
Yes.
Like when you enter into a super state of super consciousness, it cannot be measured. You see, Swami Vivekananda, he said, the purpose of any practice, any spiritual practice, is to move into a super conscious state.
Yes.
From whatever consciousness we have,
yes,
we should be able to jump into super conscious state at will. And also dive deeper into subconscious state at will. he calls it very beautifully. This statement, if I can recall exactly, see, it's a thin. Our available consciousness is a thin layer of film of water, above which there are two giant oceans. Imagine thin layer sandwiched between Atlantic and Pacific Ocean. What happens to this available consciousness?
I love that description.
Right?
Yes.
That's his Vivekananda's. So through meditation, we are able to soar higher into superconscious state, space of superconscious state. And through cleaning process of heartfulness, you are able to tap into your subconscious. Thus, you are expanding your daily, you are able to expand this thin film, and one day it will cover both the oceans.
Incredible.
Yeah. So one day meditation won't help.
uh, Daji, which brings me, since we were talking about destiny and we were talking about free choice, this book, Designing Destiny. I mean, this is a very catchy title
Mm.
because, I mean, it's almost oxymoronic, right? Because you assume that destiny is something that's given. Now, designing destiny means that it's not given. You've designed it.
It's in your hands.
So, explain this a little better to us, sir.
Okay. It's very easy one to understand. Let's say you are moving in a forest and think, oh, how did this forest come into about, There are trees, all kinds of trees and shrubs, and sometimes it's difficult to pass through the trees. Then you enter, let us say, you visit a beautiful garden, exquisite garden, say, where you are mesmerized by the beauty of, flowers, certain fragrant flowers, certain fragrant leaves. And you keep on touching one after the other and admire, wow, who made this beautiful garden?
Right.
So there is a person who comes into picture, a gardener,
Yeah.
with his intelligence. He knows what to plant where.
That's right.
He knows which seed will go where, at what time I have to plant, what sort of soil it will require, how much water to give. He plans out everything systematically. Forest, there is no planning.
Yes.
Today, every human being, I'm making a general statement.
Sure.
Exceptions are there.
Yes.
They are leading a life of raising a forest. No control over seeds. There are no gardeners left. And what are these seeds in human life? Our thoughts. We don't regulate them anymore. Whatsoever comes, let's go in that direction. We chase them until somebody kicks you and says, don't do this. Right? So thoughts become actions. Actions become results. And results is the one that gives you happiness or no lack of it. Right? So either you're happy because you have good consequence of writing a great novel. If it was bad, you'll feel so sad, go no more. And what happened to me? Now I have to change my style perhaps.
Right.
Again, new thoughts will come, but it's in you to regulate those thoughts. And what is preceding these thoughts? We say results of my actions. Actions. What precedes action is my well thought out plans. Before that, good thoughts. What precedes these thoughts? Intentions. And how to regulate those intentions? Imagine the intentions of a murderer and intentions of a lover. What is the difference? Whatever it be, they are, because of their past background, they have created liking for something that makes one a lover and another a hater. So the personality that I have created for myself, those traits will overflow in my mind as intentions. And intentions translated into thoughts, thoughts into action, actions into results. So we have to change our personality, basically. But it will have to start again with thoughts. How I regulate my thoughts, like seeds. I don't plant these seeds everywhere or wherever it likes to go. I have to cut them. Say. I cannot entertain all the thoughts, otherwise it will create jungle in my life. So be precise, like a gardener, what to plant where, like your chapters in the novel, which chapter, which word, which sentence.
Yeah.
Then it can become a beautiful book.
Yeah. And in that sense, in fact, that you mentioned that when the outcomes, when the results are not necessarily to your liking, then that seems to almost determine human happiness and dissatisfaction. But if we really think about it from a Buddhist point of view, we've always said, hey, listen, the world is full of sorrow and suffering. And ultimately, the way to get out of that is by losing, shedding desire and craving. But on the other hand, the Hindu way of thinking about it is that happiness is your original state. It's your natural state. So what is it? Is it is is happiness meant to be my natural state?
Let's talk about this in the evening.
Sure.
Yeah, I
Sure.
think this can be another 2 hours. So it's very simple, I think. It's very simple.